isolated village of Eldermoor had always carried an air of mystery, nestled deep within a dense forest where the sunlight barely pierced through the thick canopy. Time seemed to move slower in Eldermoor, and the villagers clung to their old traditions and superstitions with a fervent devotion. It was a place where the line between the natural and supernatural was often blurred, where legends of ghosts and ancient curses were as much a part of life as the changing seasons. Among these villagers was a young woman named Amelia, who had recently moved to Eldermoor to start a new life away from the chaos of the city. She had inherited her grandmother's old cottage on the outskirts of the village, a charming but weathered home that held many childhood memories. Amelia was eager to embrace the quiet and solitude, hoping to find peace in the tranquility of the forest. However, it didn't take long for Amelia to sense that something was amiss in Eldermoor. The villagers were friendly enough, but there was an underlying tension that she couldn't quite place. Whispers of strange occurrences and ghostly apparitions filled the air, and the forest seemed to watch her with an almost sentient awareness. She soon learned of the village's most feared and whispered about legend, the story of the Forgotten. According to the legend, the Forgotten were the restless spirits of villagers who had mysteriously disappeared over the centuries. They were said to be trapped in a shadowy realm between life and death, unable to move on because of some unfinished business or ancient curse. The villagers believed that the forest was haunted by these spirits, and they avoided certain areas, especially after nightfall. Amelia's curiosity was piqued. As a writer with a passion for uncovering hidden truths, she decided to delve deeper into the mystery of the Forgotten. She began by exploring the old records and diaries stored in the village's tiny library, piecing together fragments of history and folklore. Her investigation led her to a series of disappearances that had occurred in Eldermoor over the past 2 centuries, each shrouded in mystery and fear. One name stood out among the records: Margaret, a young woman who had vanished under strange circumstances nearly 100 years ago. Her disappearance had been particularly unsettling because it coincided with the sudden appearance of eerie shadows in the forest, shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Determined to uncover the truth, Amelia decided to visit the place where Margaret was last seen, a secluded clearing deep within the forest. As dusk approached, Amelia made her way through the dense woods, guided by the fading light of the setting sun. The forest grew darker and more foreboding with each step, the trees closing in around her like silent sentinels. She reached the clearing just as the last rays of sunlight disappeared, casting the area into an eerie twilight. The clearing was overgrown with thick grass and wildflowers, and in the center stood an ancient stone altar, covered in moss and vines. Amelia felt a chill run down her spine as she approached the altar, the air around her growing colder. She knelt down and began to examine the carvings on the stone, tracing the intricate patterns with her fingers. Suddenly, she heard a soft whisper, so faint that she wasn't sure if it was real or just her imagination. "Help us!" Amelia's heart raced as she looked around, searching for the source of the voice. The clearing was empty, but she could feel a presence, a sense of being watched. She called out, "Who's there? What do you want?" The whisper came again, more insistent this time. "Free us!" Gathering her courage, Amelia decided to spend the night in the clearing, hoping to learn more about the spirits that haunted the forest. She set up a small campfire and wrapped herself in a blanket, her eyes scanning the darkened woods for any sign of movement. Hours passed and the forest remained silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Just as she was about to give up and return home, she saw it, a shadow moving through the trees, too dark and too defined to be a trick of the light. It glided silently across the clearing, stopping at the stone altar. Amelia watched in awe as the shadow seemed to take on a human form, its features indistinct, but unmistakably female. She realized she was looking at the spirit of Margaret. "Margaret," Amelia called out softly. "Is that you?" The shadowy figure turned towards her, and Amelia could feel a wave of sorrow emanating from it. "Yes," the whisper came barely audible. "I am Margaret. We are the forgotten, trapped in this place for eternity. Please help us find peace." Amelia's heart ached for the lost souls, and she vowed to do whatever she could to help them. She asked Margaret how she could free them, and the spirit pointed to the stone altar. "There is a ritual," Margaret explained. "An ancient rite that can break the curse and release us from this torment. You must perform it under the light of the full moon." Over the next few days, Amelia researched the ritual, consulting old books and speaking with the village elders. She learned that the ritual involved lighting candles, burning sacred herbs, and reciting an incantation in the language of the ancients. As the night of the full moon approached, she gathered the necessary materials and prepared herself for the task ahead. On the night of the full moon, Amelia returned to the clearing, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She set up the candles around the altar and lit them, their flickering light casting long shadows across the clearing. The air was thick with anticipation, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Amelia began the ritual, her voice steady as she recited the incantation. The wind picked up, swirling around her as the shadows in the clearing began to move, drawn towards the altar by an unseen force. The air grew colder, and she could hear the whispers of the forgotten, their voices filled with hope and desperation. As she completed the final words of the incantation, a blinding light enveloped the clearing, and the shadows began to dissolve, their forms merging with the light. The voices grew louder, a chorus of gratitude and relief. "Thank you," they whispered. "We are free." When the light faded, the clearing was silent once more. The oppressive darkness that had haunted the forest was gone, replaced by a sense of peace and tranquility. Amelia felt a profound sense of accomplishment and knew that she had done the right thing. She had brought closure to the restless souls of Eldermoor and broken the curse that had bound them for centuries. In the days that followed, the village seemed to come alive with a renewed sense of hope. The shadows that had once haunted Eldermoor were no more, and the villagers spoke of Amelia's bravery with admiration and gratitude. She had found her place in the community, and the forest that had once seemed so foreboding was now a place of beauty and serenity. Amelia continued to live in her grandmother's cottage, cherishing the tranquility and the connections she had made. She knew that the past would never be forgotten, but it no longer held the power to instill fear. The story of the forgotten had become a tale of redemption and hope, a testament to the power of courage and compassion in the face of darkness.